You now tuned into the hottest podcast in the world, the Stay Woke Podcast, right here on TheSonicBreakdown.com.
Welcome back to another episode of the Stay Woke Podcast, presented by TheSonicBreakdown.com. And you know, this is DeRa Brinson, host of the Stay Woke Podcast. And today is the day Kendrick Lamar dropped Damn. So you know this podcast has to be our first impressions of that album. I want to briefly just explain that why I've been calling these first impressions. I saw this quote, or I saw this video of Jay-Z explaining that you can't review an album in a day. And I agree with him, and I retweeted that, saying that you can't really have a true review with just one day's worth of listen. Even if you listen to it, you know, several times in that day, you can't really get a real overall review because there's nuances, there's intricate aspects of the production and the lyrics that you're just not going to get with several listens. It has to sit with you, and you have to build those connections and understand why those connections made and how they clicked for you versus how they were written by Kendrick. It takes a little bit more time, I believe, in order to have a real true review. So this is just my first impressions on what I initially think of it, because again, albums will change and mold, and you'll peel out and parse out several different ideologies that you might not have heard before. Like the same thing with the Joey Badass. I'm peeling even more layers in that album than I did last week. So again, so this is just a first impression. As you know, the album came out today. There is, 14 tracks. It's about 55 minutes long. And it's a very different approach on this album. You can hear it in the production. You can hear it in his the content. You can hear it in the way he's choosing to flow over the production. One of the things that I took is in To Pimp a Butterfly, there's a very funk layered, complex detail, not necessarily more detail, but it's very just more complex than this album. This album feels a little bit more stripped down, more bare, more raw. Not to say that they both don't have the emotional content in them. There's that difference between the albums just sonically. The album starts out with Blood. Let me go back to the title for a second. There was a guy, Marcus Arnold, he follows us on Instagram, and we follow him on Instagram as well, and he stated that the title is in the biblical aspect of damned, to be condemned by God to suffer eternal punishment in hell. And so that aspect of it gives you a different approach than just the emotion of damn, as in like, wow, I wasn't expecting that, which you can still get. But the first track is called Blood, and the harmony there's a harmony that gives like an 80s feel. And Kendrick begins by telling us what he saw walking one day and sparked the concept for this album, or the ideology and the theme behind what he's talking about, and led him to this journey. And that is him seeing a blind woman struggle to pick up or to find something. One of the things that I took from this is that his willingness to help somebody invokes that no good deed goes unpunished, or that, you know, that people take advantage of or they see it as a weakness if you're kind, caring, considerate, and people exploit and manipulate those, and because they see it as a weakness. That had me questioning, and I think maybe Kendrick was on the same page, is questioning, why is that a weakness? Why is that something that should be taken advantage of, that should be manipulated, is seen as a negative when it should be seen as a positive? Being willing to help somebody, being selfless. Also in Blood, the production is more stripped down, and there's a last section after you take all that into account of what I was saying earlier about questioning the weakness as a kindness as a weakness, excuse me. And then there's the last section points to some criticism, or not the last line, but there's a last snippet that they took from the Gerardo Rivera commenting on his line in To Pimp a Butterfly. They want to kill us dead in the streets for a show. That line. And that they were criticizing it and saying that it's shameful in that regard. If you watch the full clip, that's what they go into more detail and intimate. Here, they just play that clip, and it gives the impression that he hears it and he's taking it in, and this might be a response to that and to things of that nature. The whole feel of this beginning track has a Quentin Tarantino kind of movie cinematic feel. And the album has that kind of feel, as if it's in that kind of movie where there is so much different types of emotion, highs, lows, loves, outs. And then you get to the last track and it kind of hits you with the ultimate story in essence. But I'll go into more detail of that information a little later as well. So DNA. DNA is the next track, and there's a very nice bass line that's more reminiscent of a Mad City track from Good Kid, Mad City, or the Mad City track, off of Good Kid, Mad City. And basically, K-Dot is saying that we're all complex. We all have duality. And this album touches on a lot of duality between almost in every song, I believe, as well as in to me, the whole theme of this album, and possibly a double album, which I'll go into more detail at the end. But basically, yeah, K-Dot is saying that, we're all complex creatures. We all are multifaceted, multi-layered, intricate beings that, have good sides, have bad sides, and are trying to find the balance and navigate through that. DNA is produced by Mike Will Made It. It makes sense why K-Dot picked that beat. It's that beat slaps. That beat is a banger. So all the production on this is very, very good. Some I like more than others, but DNA is definitely a standout track production wise, as well as the content of what he's saying. But the second half of the track switches, and you get Cornrow Kenny, and he comes in and he's not taking no prisoners. He's going in, he's going hard, and he's just really going in. The next album, it's kind of like, in essence, like blah blah blah, like people are talking, and just people like to talk, or that Jerry Seinfeld line from the album About Nothing with Wale, where he says people like to talk, so let them talk. That's kind of the inference that I'm taking from this track. It is a very more moody feeling track, and about the outside world's impact on his reality, the difference that it has now versus before, and how he's kind of working in that world of being such a celebrity where people are talking about you all the time. How to deal with that, and is it worth responding to? Is it worth not responding to? Is it worth going at niggas' heads? Like, what's the real path to do it in the best way? And he's kind of getting in on that. And it also feels like he's taking shots at other artists, other rappers, saying that, a lot of people are talking, but there's no substance behind it. There's no realness behind it. They just talking to talk without, again, having, or they're talking and not realizing the impact that their words have or the strength that they have. And so you should maybe put in more work when you have that big of an impact. Going into our politics, like I said before, is what I was worried about with Trump is not understanding the weight of your words, and you can't just say things. You have to be meticulous and diligent and methodical in the words that you're choosing when you have that platform, because your words can be the difference between life and death, war and non-war in President Trump's case. And so I think he's kind of touching on that in here as well. He does get political in this album. I think, what is it, on Humble, where he goes in with that. On the following song is Element, and this one has it's a more smooth Kendrick Lamar with a sophisticated, hard-hitting production with content that gives an arrogant, blunt, braggadocious feel, but not it's in a braggadocious way, but still in the content. But the way that he's flowing over the production and over those words is smooth. So it's a kind of a contradiction in that, which I find pretty nice. And it's kind of something that I spoke on with Isaiah Rashad Sylvia demo. What I liked about him is he had hard-hitting production, or he had softer production, and he was just going so aggressive. Here, the production and the smoothness of Kendrick go together, but the words is just so aggressive. It also feels like he's saying in Elements rather, feels like he's rapping in a Drake type of flow on a Drake type of production, as well as taking shots at Drake all at the same time on this production. So I have no proof of this. This is just my conjecture. The overall conclusion that I get from this project is that he wanted to let everybody know in the rap game, all of his competitors, that he's not letting them take him off his spot. He's going to stay on his spot regardless. And he's not losing his cool. He's just explaining the flow, and it's just so laid back. I can see this being like a summer anthem just because of the vibe that it has, the coolness of it. And then there is some Juvenile homage with the last verse, or the end of the track, where he goes, the flow pattern is very similar to Juvenile's. Following that is Feel. It starts off with several people saying "No one's praying for me," giving a somber, melancholy atmosphere. And then there's a Jazzanova type drum pattern with other elements that make it more hip hop and a contemporary sounding production. It's reminiscent of a track or some production on Untitled Unmastered in the feel, And it just feels like on this album that they fully fleshed it out into a complete concept to go with what he's talking about. And we review that album, Untitled, Unmastered, on TheSonicBreakdown.com under the breakdown page. So you can check that out. That's where we talk about that kind of sound on sections of that. Here, Kendrick just dumping all of his emotions that he might have been afraid to say out loud, because we know how society and people are. Especially, it seems nowadays that some people are more sensitive, or that the culture is more sensitive as a whole. And we all have those feelings of, if you say it, it's going to hurt somebody's feeling, but that's the honest truth of how you feel about it, or how you don't feel about something, whatever. And so you hold it in, or you rearrange how you say it. Here, it's just saying, Kendrick is just basically giving all those raw emotions out with no filter, no holding back. But it's still not malicious. He's not saying it to hurt, if somebody were to hear it, to hurt their feelings, but he's saying what he truly feels. And because there is a difference. You can say something to hurt somebody's feeling, intentionally do it. It sounds like here, some of the things that he says are things that would hurt somebody's feelings if they did hear it, and if it was about them. But again, he's not saying it maliciously to do that. And so that's something that usually doesn't fit in our social norms. That, again, is the freedom that art gives you, and other avenues. It gives you that freedom to say those things in a safe space, sort of like therapy. And the reason why he feels like he has the liberty to do it is because nobody's praying for him. So nobody cares what he says or if he says it. So he's just going to speak his mind. And I think it was a very real project, or a real track. I feel he executed it well, and those emotions are felt and can resonate with people. Like I said, a lot of us, or everybody, knows that feeling of wanting to say something, but you don't want the repercussions of how it's said. And then that track kind of bleeds into Loyalty, which makes sense of, and the order of this album also makes sense as well. And everything's in capitals. I just want to say that as well, just like in Joey's, where it's kind of yelling at you to make you pay attention. Loyalty is the song that he has with Rihanna. And it has, to me, like a hood Usher type of production. And again, like I said, it will make sense because of Rihanna. You have an R&B singer that has that kind of sexual, sensual sound. Which, again, if you believe K-Dot and Drake are having a beef, or had a beef, what's more savage than taking shots at him on your album, talking about him with Riri, and speaking on loyalty, which people have said that Drake isn't loyal, he's fake, he's opportunistic, things of that nature. And again, I don't really feed into or read that stuff, so I'm not abreast on all of that. I'm more into the music, but since the music is talking about it, that's what it seems like he might be alluding to that as well. But the concept of the song is basically just loyalty. Where does your loyalty lie? Who does it lie in? And how easily is it broken, or how easily is it swayed? And, that is important. I think loyalty is multi-layered, because, where they say blood is thicker than water, but then sometimes family can do you wrong, and your friends might have your back more than that. So who would your loyalty lie in that situation? Should it lie in your family? Should it lie in your friends that had your back in that situation? And I'm just playing devil's advocate. So just to highlight how loyalty can be multi-layered, and it's just not black and white, that you should be loyal to, they say loyalty to a fault. So that means there is some flaws, and there is some levels and aspects of the spectrum that loyalty might not be favorable. So they really flesh that out, and it's a nice track. I can see it being probably another single. It has that single type of feel, and I mean, yeah, it's a cool vibe. The last line that Rihanna says, she talks about being humble, and then the next track is Pride. So it kind of, again, bleeds into this one, saying, or leading the content to leading you into this, and how loyalty how pride and being humble can affect loyalty as well. They don't really speak on it, but to me, that's what that's kind of alluding to. With the next track being Pride, the production kicks in, and it has a Van Hunt from the Van Hunt album kind of feel that came out in 2004. That album, I really enjoy that album as well, but this track has that kind of feel with underlying vibes of that come in after we're warned that love will kill us, and pride will be the death of us all. Kendrick kind of alters his voice throughout the song to help the trippy effect. They alter it enough so that it's not gimmicky, and it doesn't just feel like we did that just for just this effect. It adds to the song, and it's done just enough so that it adds to the tones and the layers, and it hits the right production cues to make the song more dynamic. And it's not overly done, it's not underly used, and they have a real nice touch with it. Kendrick touches on his pride and how it's affecting others, because it might be stopping him from being able to be there emotionally, physically, and mentally, because his pride is so big that it's allowing him to do other things and not see others that need him or that he used to be there for, which is something that maybe we all can't relate to because we haven't been in the star status that he has been, or even close to that. But we all do understand how time, trying to go for our careers, go for the things that you love. If you're a basketball player, practicing all the time, that you kind of neglect your family and your friends. Baseball, whatever your profession is, when you're trying to be great at something, you tend to sacrifice the time that you have. And that can be your pride, of the pride in what you have, of what you're doing. Not necessarily the pride in yourself, but that's also tied into that. So pride can be taken to very different levels as well. And again, all of this is just our first impressions of the album. I haven't listened to it enough to really grasp all the details, but that's some of the areas that I think he was taking it there. Pride is followed by humble, which again makes perfect sense, because and goes in with that Rihanna line that of being humble affecting your pride. There's a balance between that. You can still have pride but also be humble. But if that balance isn't there, again, the duality, if the balance isn't there and you lead too far to one side, that can stop you from being humble, or being too humble can stop you from having any pride. So you have to have that balance. And I'm not going to talk too much about Humble, because that was the single that was released and you all heard it. We all have, basically there's been so much put out there already about it. And, I think that's been covered. So we're going to move on to Lust, which is the next track. And that has a underwater, like, heartbeat feel as the sound oscillates from the left to the right headphones. And this is something that he did on You from To Pimp a Butterfly. Kendrick is using a Bilal mixed with a D'Angelo twist on his vocals, which gives a very sensual feel to fit, and it fits with that underwater heartbeat production. He expands upon lust, and not just like the sexual desires, but the things that we also lust after. So it's just not lusting for a woman, a man, the other, whatever you're attracted to sexually, but also the things that we're attracted to. He also talks about water, which is a reference that he used in Good Kid, Mad City, if you remember, about being thirsty and needing the blood of Christ to kind of refresh you. This album has tons of religious references throughout it, but it doesn't feel preachy. He also talks about the election and the feelings with that, and in that, he talks about lusting over the fame and the contradictions of what you lust for and your values or your beliefs. Love is the next track, which makes sense after Lust, and comparing love or lust, what would you have? We talk about that on the relationship podcast, as well as Brother in Love podcast, about determining love and lust. So check that out. On this track, basically, it gives me a kind of a trap soul, a Problem from Black, that type of feel of a trap R&B feel with Zachariah. And Zachariah has nice vocals. It fits the production nicely. And I will say it's not one of my favorite tracks on the album. And maybe it just has to grow on me. Maybe I have to dig in deeper with it. But initially, it's like I said, it's not a bad album. I mean, a bad track, but it's just not my favorite off of the 14 tracks. Then you have Triple X. On Triple X, that has the U2 feature. And when you initially hear the production and the sound, you're like, where is U2 going to fit on this? And the beginning has a 80s layer with a trap bass line with interesting breaks that remind me of like NWA and a Beastie Boys kind of smash up. And then this track definitely had me saying like, damn, for real, like damn, because of what he's speaking to, how the production is done. He speaks on how as people of color, black people in particular, how we're resilient, and also the idea of if somebody messes with your family or messes with you, like that feeling of I will do anything if somebody messes with my family. Like if somebody even touched my grandmother, spoke to my grandmother in a harsh manner, I can see myself feeling the rage of, oh, they going down. because that's your family and you want to protect them with everything you have because of the love that they have for you and the love you have for them. And that not quite being the proper, thing to do, the right thing to do. That's not how we should feel. We should, be logical and say, well, let's assess how this happened, what was the conditions, but that blind rage of somebody messes with your family, you're going to take that out. And then he juxtaposes that because there's a break in the production, and he says, now we're going to go to the convention and we're going to talk about gun control. But he's just talking about killing somebody if they mess with your family and not having a problem, going to the court, going to the jail, turning yourself in, saying, yeah, I did it and I'm proud. And then, like I said, going to the conference to talk about gun control, and that's when you hear U2 come in. And Urbano, I really enjoyed the second part of this track or this song as well because of the way that the production changes and the use of the organ. It just gives a more introspective feel as he unravels his viewpoints on gun control and how America views black people, as well as that guns kill everybody. They kill the rich, they kill the poor, they kill white, they kill black, they kill every color, every race, every creed. So we need to do something. Fear follows that. And Fear has a very soulful feel from the keys to the vocal layers. When the guitar hits, it hits you in your soul. There's sections that sound as if Kendrick is speaking in tongues, and that complements the religious tone. They begin the song with a verse from Deuteronomies. As a deep voice person asks God questions from a solemn viewpoint. And Kendrick is speaking from a parental mindset in the verse of what might say is a stereotypical black parent or a parent that believes in corporal punishment of, you do anything wrong, you're going to get a whooping. You embarrass me, you're going to get a whooping. Whatever it is, you're going to get a whooping. That is your punishment. And installing that fear in them, the fear in you that if you do something wrong, consequence will be me. And there's nobody worse to fear than me. And that kind of goes to the religious tone as well. It does spare the rod, spoil the child, as well as to have a fear in God. Just taking on that word, depending on how you see the word as fear, can be, why would you want to fear something that you love? So it touches on that. On the corporal punishment aspect as well, is I was raised by a mom that did that I got whoopings. I still loved my mom. I still love my mom. She passed away, but my grandmother, she beat me too. Well, give me whoopings, I'll say. And I still love her. And so he's just touching on that, and that's in the first verse. Then there's tambourines that add a slight, there's tambourines that add slight punches to the lines at certain parts of his verses. In his last verse, or a later verse, Kendrick speaks of the fears that he had from losing money, losing creativity, that fear of what happens if I can't rap anymore, in essence? What happens if I can't do this anymore? What happens if I lose all my money? What happens if this and this, your worst possible fears? And he also touches on the fear of death. Most people have that fear of death. And so just him taking it there is interesting. I read a couple of years ago that he thinks about, I don't know if he still does, but he used to think about death a lot and how he would die, things of that nature. This gives me indication that he might still be thinking about death. This touches on that immensely. After fear, he has God. So, the fear of God or fear in God, depending how you want to phrase it or how you want to word it. And so, again, the execution of this album is well done. And that's why some people are saying they think it's a mixtape or it has a mixtape sound. To me, it doesn't have a mixtape sound. It has a very finished sound. But I'll get into more of that in the overall impression. But the way that the track's laid out, the way that the production's laid out, the content, it all shows the meticulous detail of it all has a purpose and it all goes together. And there's many visions as well as the overall picture of how they want it to fall out. God has a sophisticated trap love beat, an infusion of love in the way that the production is laid out to give those emotions. And so I'm assuming that is trying to give the impression of love in God, love of God, whatever that God might be in the production, as well as how he's writing the beat, as well as the flow. This to me sounds kind of like a Future song. It sounds like a Future song, but done better with more substance. And I know I'm going to get a lot of people out there saying I'm hating on Future. I'm not. I'm just saying, to me, that's the comparison that I see between a Future doing this song and a Kendrick doing this song. And to me, it also speaks to the diversity that Kendrick has of the ability to switch up his flow, switch up his style, switch up the sound, but still maintain providing content. And this, to me, it seems like he's not pointing fingers, but to me, this song, it feels as if it's kind of like a parody of what everybody is doing today. Because to me, it also has a Post Malone feel in the way that it's laid out, the melodical aspects of it. It sounds like he's comparing God to money, and when they go, this is how God feels when he's talking about going to the bank, getting the money, flossing, flexing. And again, I might need to listen to the song more to get other meanings, but that's what it sounds like, is if he's saying, you all talking about your money, your love, the love for money, jewelry, cars, clothes, expensive things. And that's become the new idol. And the Bible says, thou shalt not worship false prophets or false idols. And this is kind of like he's speaking to that the way that we treat these things, these materialistic things, these superficial things, we're treating it as if it's a god because of how we worship it, how we spend much time talking about it, how much time we spend thinking about it, how much time we spend showcasing it, all those things that we do with those materialistic, superficial things, that it has become a god in our society. And is that really what we want? Is that how things should be? Is that acceptable? Questioning that, not saying, whoever does that is wrong, whoever does that is right, more questioning that and kind of shining a light on it. That is followed by, to me, the best song on the album, Duckworth. Ninth Wonder, Ninth Wonder, Ninth Wonder, Ninth Wonder. That's all I gotta say, man. If you don't know about him by now, I don't know what to tell you, because the man keeps coming with it. He keeps coming with it. It's a haunting banger. The drums grip you in. Let me break it down this way. On Duckworth, there's multiple samples, multiple production layers, multiple drum patterns in 3 different sections, 3, maybe even 4. It goes together seamlessly that it still makes sense that it's one track, but you definitely get taken on a journey. And that's what stories are supposed to do. And then when you add that on top of Kendrick Lamar's verses, taking you on that journey even further, it's the perfect storm. Like I said, the production tells the story on its own. If you took out Kendrick's lyrics and you just played the production, you can feel there's an emotional turn and changes through the production. And then again, when you add, like I said, Kendrick's verse on top of that, the story, and then if you just take the story on the face value of what he's saying, the story itself, the beginning, the middle, the end, that's nice. Then you take on to the fact of how he tells this story. It's not just, beginning, middle, and end. The chapters in this story with, again, it's only one song. The way that he lays it out, it feels like a complete story or a complete movie. It feels like again, a Quentin Tarantino thriller. Like we're watching a movie unfold, and you kind of have an idea of the predicting of the end, but you're not quite sure. And when you do know, you still want to hear it to the end to find out, to hear how it completes again, just because of how well it's done creatively. They outdid themselves. It's a very good track. It's a complete story, and that you're going to want to listen over and over again. I'll give a portion of it because I still want you definitely need to listen to it, but it's basically Kendrick Lamar explaining how if things were different, kind of like Passengers on a Train or things of that nature, but it's basically saying if things were a little bit different, if Top made one different decision, if my dad made one different decision, or that we might not be here listening to this album right now. We might not get this track, Duckworth, which is Kendrick's father's name, Kenneth Duckworth. We might not get this track. Again, it's a real complete track. Now, let me break down this overall project for you guys. So like I told you about the Bible meaning of condemned as meaning damn for the title. There's so many religious references, tones, qualities, even just the topics and themes: love, lust, pride, loyalty, fear, obviously God. All of those things are religious subjects, or can be religious subjects, depending on your focus. But this is nothing new to Kendrick projects. He's always had religious tones, religious ideas, ideologies throughout all of his projects. Section 80, To Pimp a Butterfly, Good Kid, Mad City, even Overly Dedicated. So this is nothing new, but I feel like he keeps his religious beliefs, but he's not preachy. He speaks his mind, but he doesn't force it on you. So that's something that I do like, because I'm not the most religious person in the world. I'll say I'm more spiritual than religious, but I'm very abreast in religious ideologies. Album also deals with duality as well as full circle. The first line about him going to taking the walk and seeing the lady, the blind woman, ends the track. So it gives you that full circle idea as well. The album has a very nostalgic feel with Kid Capri coming on there, but Kid Capri also pulls me away from the tracks. It does give it more of a mixtape feel. So it kind of pulls me away instead of really just like being engulfed in that world and staying in that world. He pulls me out with those lines. Some people that I do want to mention are that are on this track that are worth mentioning. Thundercat with the bass on Feel. Kamasi Washington on Lust. Plays the strings on Lust. And then you got Ketaranda doing some vocals on Lust. Steve Lacy from The Internet on Pride. And of course you got Anna Wise. DNA was produced by Mike Will Made It. All of the tracks are mixed by Ali, the in-house TDE producer. And Mike Will Made It did Humble, as you know. Soundwave did Yeah. Soundwave also did Element. And then you got this person, Beacon, Bekon. I'm not sure who that is. They've been featured on a lot of the productions here. Soundwave did Feel. Loyalty was Soundwave. Pride was Steve Lacy. He did some of the production on there. And then of course you got Ninth Wonder on Duckworth. And then Alchemist did Fear. That makes sense why I really enjoyed that track as well. Like I said, I think this is a very good track. Or a very good album. I think our project. I think it is going to be considered another classic. I see high replayability. It has a definitely different feel than To Pimp a Butterfly. It's more Good Kid, Mad City than To Pimp a Butterfly, but it's still not Good Kid, Mad City. It has a different vibe, but it's closer in sound, but still different. So he's showing you the diversity. A part of this for me makes me feel like this album is him saying, Kendrick saying, I can do what you do, Drake. I can do what you do, Big Sean. I can do fill in the name here. I can do that too. And I can do it better. And I can do it with content, with some thought-provoking content. I've told people before about why I can't really, some of those artists, like, I'm not going to put out names, but just some of the trappy production where it just vibes, I can't really get with, because the beat might be nice, but if you're not saying nothing that I can't resonate with, that I can't relate to, and you're just saying words just to say words, I can't just write off vibes for a complete album. Now a song here or there, yeah, okay. But a complete album, I can't. Just for me, personally, I can't. So therefore, I would need content. And to me, that's what Kendrick was kind of saying here, as well as the religious tone and as well as the idea of duality. The other aspect that some people are saying that this is a 2-album project, that the second half of it will be released on Monday. A part of me doesn't think that's the case, because originally it was supposed to come out on April 7th. And if that was the case, it wouldn't fit that what they're saying is the 3 days for Jesus to resurrect, and that's why he did it on Friday. It will come out on Monday. That religious tone will kind of fit up. But if that was the original idea, then if they did it last week, it wouldn't have fit that. So did they change it? So again, there's some questions that come up with that about why would they initially say the release date was the 7th if that was their first idea? So maybe it is, and they just thought about it, was like, oh, no, it would be better if we did it that way. I don't know. But I do think it was good that they did wait, because I think Joey Badass's album would have been overlooked. And I think they're both very good albums. I think they're both classics. I think they both will be considered classics after some time has been gone. But I think people would have overshadowed Joey just because Kendrick's Kendrick. Joey's is worth a listen. Joey's is that All American Badass is a very good album. You should definitely listen to that. And it's way different than this, but they both, like I said, deserve to be listened to. They both have excellent content, are executed very well, sound great. The other aspect of the prediction is that blood on the first track is red. So the red and the blue pill is something that was tweeted out prior and was on a track before as well. And so again, it would go with that duality of red and blue. He's always picking both sides. That they would have another album coming out on Monday that would probably the first track be something with blue in it. I got this from a guy on Instagram, and it's been floating around Twitter for a while. I don't know where he got it from, but I just want to give him a shout out because I believe if you get information and it's not your original information or your idea, give the credit to the person that got it from. And the name of him is Hip. That's HIP.hop. HOP.shit. SHIT on Instagram. Find him, follow him, like him, let him know that, I'm giving him his credit. So again, so they said that, the 3 days Jesus was resurrected in 3 days, this is Easter weekend, that would fit the religious theme as well. And that that album's going to be called Nation, which would be, you put Damn Nation together, you get Damnation, which fits that whole idea of the Bible reference of meaning to be condemned by God for suffering eternal punishment in hell. Damnation, definitely fits that. And they also, some of the visuals that they took from the album is damn over Kendrick's head as he's looking down. Kind of, the M has a horned look as if it's the devil. And then if they did the same thing with him and it said nation and his head is under nation, it would be a halo complementing the duality. So that this album is kind of like him being damned, and then the second part would be the resurrection, and it'd be more, I guess, the lighter version, because this album is darker. The whole theme, the sound on this whole album is darker, more, I won't say gritty, but it is darker, more, I won't say depressing, but again, gloomier, heavier in feel and sound. And so maybe Nation will be lighter, uplifting in sound again, for that duality, which would be a pretty dope idea, pretty awesome concept. The other thing that came to my mind after listening to this album is the whole Rick Rubin interview, and where Rick Rubin asked Kendrick if does he be able to make a non-rap album? And Kendrick said yes. This album makes me feel that he could. Not that I didn't think before, but it makes me feel that he could, just because the sounds, the way he's using his voice is so different on each track, and it just shows, again, the diversity that he has, that I think he can make an R&B album if he wanted to and not really sing. If he wanted to be more poppy, he could. I think, it just shows that he could make a different type of album other than rap or hip hop if that's where he kind of fell into, or, his heart desired, just because he has the talent and skills. But he also puts in the work, and so that makes it a different as well. And one of the last questions that I'll leave out for everybody out here in the the audience, and you guys to leave a comment, let me know about what you think about the album, what's your favorite track, what's your favorite song, what's your favorite production, if you think this is better than his other two studio albums, Good Kid, Mad City, To Pimp a Butterfly, or even Untitled Unmastered, or Section 80, or Overly Dedicated, any of them. But the question that I had is the woman that he encounters with in the beginning and the end, is that woman God or the devil? I'll leave that for you. And if he comes out with Nation on Monday, we will release an emergency podcast, I'll call it, on Monday or Tuesday to give you our impressions, and maybe that question that I just asked will be answered. And now we're going to take some calls from one of our listeners, and he's going to let us know his opinion, and we're just going to talk to him for a minute. So we got They Woke podcast listener on the line. We got Brandon. So we're going to get his input on the album. So, man, what did you think about the album?
Honestly, with my first impression of the album, I was completely confused. But that's normally how I feel with almost every album I've listened to Kendrick.
He throws you for a loop.
Some time after I listened to it, and after my second listen, I completely got everything he wanted you to understand on this album.
What is your take on this album?
Well, I think one thing that was made apparent was, I think the last album, To Butterfly, was a very pro-black album and very uplifting to artists and to black people as a whole. But I think this album was more of an introspective album on the fact that we have different feelings, whether it be with loyalty, pride, humble, just the simple words that he uses for his titles.
Yeah.
Just understanding that there's like a bigger picture to just those simple things, like being humble. Like with all of his fame and riches, it's hard for him to be humble.
Exactly.
And he has pride in himself also, but there's things like he has to find a way to balance it.
Exactly.
Go through it. I don't know if you hear that. I'm so sorry.
No, I definitely agree. I think what you're speaking on is the duality that he's touching on of that balance of, like I said prior, you didn't get to hear, but you'll hear it when I release the podcast, is, you know, having the ability to have pride but be humble. If you have too much pride, there's no way you can be humble. But if you're too humble, you can't have pride. So having that balance between the two, and the way that they have the tracks laid out of lust, then love, pride, then humble, also to me speaks to that duality of, you know, understanding that balance and trying to maintain that balance. And he's even having troubles understanding and maintaining that balance.
Yes, I completely agree with you on that. Definitely.
What do you think about the production? Because it's like you said, this album content wise is different than To Pimp a Butterfly, but also the production and the sonic properties are a lot different to me. It's more stripped down, I take it.
The production is a lot more digestible for the casual listener. I remember the last album, I know I keep going back to that album, but a lot of people were confused about the jazz influences in it and the funk elements, but I think he did a very good job. His team did a very good job at making it digestible for the entire public to understand. And also the tones that these beats and production that it gives to all the songs, whether it be angry, whether it just sit down and listen to this, whether it be like love, like on the actual song Love, like the production gives you those feelings that he wants you to feel. Yeah,
I definitely agree. What do you think about, did you hear the idea that there might be another album, like this is a double album and the second half of it will be released on Monday?
I was really hoping you would ask me that. I actually did see that coming through, like through the rumor mill of Twitter and all that stuff. I agree with a lot of it, just because if you actually go back to the Heart Part 4, he actually throws a lot of subtle hints at, whether it be his line where he goes from a classic to another classic, like when he comes back with it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that might be a hint at him coming with something else after that.
And I also saw that about the Damnation, the second half being Nation. And if he does that, I do think it will be a very lighter album. I think, because this album is darker in tone. Yeah, and I think the Nation one would have to be lighter just to combat and complement the duality that he keeps on pushing through.
There's one thing about that theory that I disagree with a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be called Nation. I think it might be called God, and it might be Goddamn. I keep on going back to that song, but the Heart Part 3, he makes a hint that God is coming back, and it might be that God is coming back on the album. Like the title will be called God.
That is, I didn't think about that, and I didn't see that God, but that's a good point, and it would still fit the M as the horns of the devil for damn, and then the O in God being the halo.
The O, yeah, as being the halo, yeah.
So that and it being Easter, but the thing that I said that kind of makes me kind of think that this might not be the case is because remember when he said about everybody thought the album was supposed to be on April 7th last week.
Yes.
If that was the case, it wouldn't fit that 3-day resurrection idea. You know what I'm saying? If they did the Friday, Monday last week in comparison to this week. So if they knew to have this kind of concept for this album, it's not something you just do last minute. They've been thinking about this and been putting this in the works for a while, that if you thought it was going to come on the 7th and then push it to the 14th because it fit that religious thing, like I just feel like they would have thought about that already and said, no, the day's going to be the 14th. The second one will be the Monday. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I actually want to know why it was actually pushed back. I don't know if that was planned or anything. Like if it was just planned for us to know the release date.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Because
I actually would love to know the theory on that. And I really want to know what TOC means. I want to ask him personally what TOC means.
Yeah, somebody said the other color. That's what I read, is that stands for the other color. So how the first track on Damn is blue or blood, that the other color would be blue, so the red and the blue pill.
I mean, that would be amazing. Like, come on now.
There's so many levels, so many ways you can think about it. So it's that, but that's the great thing about music, is it gives you that room to parse it down.
Yeah.
The other question that I wanted to ask you is, in the concept of him moving it from the 7 to the 14, do you think that helped or hurt him and Joey?
In terms of
people just digesting it.
Alien?
I said for people just digesting it, because I think if you release both of them on the same day, you're not gonna digest both. you're gonna pick one or the other, and then the other one's gonna put on the back burner until you're done with digesting.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so to me, because what I said earlier on the podcast is that I think that it would have been a disservice to Joey's fans and to Joey's music, because I think both albums are really good. I think both albums should be listened to and heard. But I think Kendrick would have outshined Joey, even though I don't think the album necessarily outshines Joey. They're different.
Yes.
You know, they're both really good, but they're different. But I think if they were released on that same day, we would all just be talking about Kendrick. And Joey wouldn't have got his shine, and I think that album deserves the shine that it did get, and that it should continue to get.
Yeah.
Did you get?
We want to make sure we enlighten all, like, both messages, because they're both important to what's going on in the world right now. So
exactly. What is your favorite track off the album so far?
I don't want to say the basic answer and say DNA. I know a lot of people think that's their favorite track, just from their first listen. Uh-huh. But my favorite track actually is probably Lust. And the one thing that, like, first gets me at the beginning is just, he says, "I need some water." Like, I need some water.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. He just sets it off like that. And then he recycles it 3 times to go into his flow. Yep. I mean, that's just how I like Kendrick. That's just him.
I took that reference of the waters, and it reminded me back to Good Kid, Mad City with the Maya Angelou, the Thirsty.
Yeah.
And so, and then that also still fits in with that religious theme of God. And so I was like, that was interesting. I'll say mine is Duckworth, just cause the storytelling, man, like.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Man, and Ninth Wonder with that production, like I said, that production tells a story on its own. If you take out Kendrick's verse and you just play the production, you get emotional range and depth. And then you add his verse on, it adds so much.
And beat switch up.
Yeah.
It goes into, like, the result of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and that M. Night Shyamalan twist, I was like, oh.
Yes.
I was like, for a second, I was like, okay, I get where he's going. I get it. And then with that twist, I was like, oh, to me, that song's going to have so much high replayability for a storytelling song.
Yeah.
So, the last thing I want to ask you before I let you get out of here is the woman in the beginning and at the end. Is that the question that I formed after hearing it was, is she God or the devil? Or is she either?
I honestly think that the woman at the beginning is Lady Justice.
Oh, see.
Because if you actually look at the statue of Lady Justice, she's blindfolded, and the lady is blind.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I got from it. And I actually only know that she's Lady Justice because I learned that in one of my classes recently. But I think that's her. Like, I think it's just justice. Like, Lady Justice killed him at the beginning, and then.
See, yeah. That's a good. Yeah, that's a good point, because when I heard it, I didn't even take it to that. I took it as, like I said, of God, and the reason why I took it as God is because prior to this, I heard there was rumors that he was making an album that was similar to kind of like Absol and Mac Miller, of questioning if God was a a woman and just women and femininity. Yeah. So that kind of was on my mind, as well as when he talks about the weakness and the wickedness of, so that, because the way it seems society is going is, like he talks about of, if you're compassionate, if you're caring, if you're loving, that's a weakness, and it can be taken advantage of, manipulated, and it's a weakness. Or is it? So that's the reason why I took it. But that's an interesting idea of Lady Justice, and that would tie in to Pimp a Butterfly on the Afrocentric, black movement.
Yeah. So I was just throwing that out there. I know it's a little far fetched, but
dang it, but hey, it got me thinking. So I mean, I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say, man, before we get out of here?
I just want to ask you a quick question.
Okay.
With having it, I mean, you've had it for at least a couple of hours. How do you rank this with his other albums and mixtapes?
Again, it is still very early, so I think
very fresh,
I need some more time to digest it, because I've had so long with Good Kid, Mad City and To Pimp a Butterfly that, because to me, I can't even really rank the two, because to me, both of those albums, it's kind of how I said about the Joey and this album, is that To Pimp a Butterfly and Good Kid, Mad City are, to me, classics. In my mind, there's no debating, there's no question. I've sat with them long enough. The music is that quality that it's a classic. So that's that's the highest rank I can give it. But they're so different that I can't say one's better than the other, because To Pimp a Butterfly gives me, it takes me to places that Good Kid, Mad City can't, because of the funk elements, because of the jazz elements. Just because of the content of being socially aware, where Good Kid, Mad City, man, it's a movie. It's a good ass movie on wax. And, with this album, it's just so different. and that's what I love about Kendrick. And that's why he has to be put on the pantheon of rappers, or not even rappers, of artists, because
artists, yeah, I agree. Because
of the diversity that he has and how he takes it. So to be honest, man, I can't really rank it, but right now, if I had to, just because it's so new, I would have to put To Pimp a Butterfly and Good Kid, Mad City a tad edge over this one. But I think after a couple of months, it's going to end up being either just with them or might pass them. What about you?
I feel you. I respect that.
What about for you?
I would agree with you on everything you said. I would probably, just because I've had more time with the other one, I would rank Pimp a Butterfly probably my number one, and very, very, very close with Good Kid, Mad City. Pimp a Butterfly only because of how emotional that album made me feel during and after I listened to it. And when you get the result, if nobody's heard the album, I know everybody has who's listening, but if you haven't heard the album, it's great.
You're slipping.
The end result is just amazing. So, and then I would put that third, but only because I just have, you need time to sit on it.
I definitely, and actually, there's one more thing I do want to ask you, because I would like to get your opinion on this. Is some of the feel of this album, to me, some of the tracks, it felt like Kendrick saying to Drake, Big Sean, and others, I'll leave the rest nameless, that I can do what you guys are doing, but better, and still have content. That's how some of the songs came off to me, is like the type of production and the type of sound is like, Loyalty to me sounds like a song Drake would do. Except Drake wouldn't. But Drake lyrically or content wise, to me, doesn't match Kendrick. I'm not saying Drake is weak. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying content wise, he's not as good as lyricist to me. And so that's what that track kind of felt like to me. And there's other tracks that feel a little bit like that. What are you, did you catch any of that, or is that?
Yeah. I've listened to rap enough to be able to notice the nuances that other people have in their music and their flows. Definitely, I can see that, like, I don't necessarily call it copying. I see it as him just throwing a little jab to like
Yeah.
Drake or Big Sean, like, yo, I'm gonna do your flow, and I'm just gonna make you eat your words.
Exactly.
And if you're throwing anything back, you're gonna have to listen to this and know I'm doing it.
Exactly. That's exactly how I took it. Like you said, it's not copying. It's saying, it's like an athlete saying, okay, oh, you want to dunk on me? Okay, I'm gonna dunk on you even better. Like, it's just that level of competition of, I'm gonna one up you, and I'm gonna one up you on your own, with your own shit. So that's another thing I took. But again, man, I want to say thank you for, calling in. Also, give out your Instagram, give shout outs, whatever shout outs you want to give, let them know.
All right. Thank you so much for having me on, DeRa. Follow me, guys, on Instagram at running over a hill. Also, shout out to my university, Humboldt State University. Shout out to Cedric. Thank you for having me once again, man.
All right, no problem, man. Take it easy.
All right. Bye.
So again, thank you for listening to another Stay Woke podcast. This is DeRa Brinson. You know our motto: live, listen to some great music, and above all, love more. King Kendrick back.